Who's out there itching and scratching to hear about price action on BEPRO, PDEX, and POLK? Raise your hands. Okay, all of you who politely raised your hands, this video is for you. If you're a new viewer to this channel, let me tell you real quick what you're going to get out of this channel and this video and subsequent videos as well. You're going to be out there mostly on crypto YouTube finding videos about fundamentals and news about the projects. What my channel does is it helps you have a better idea of what you're doing when you're clicking around with your money, so it supplements the information that you're getting from the vast majority of channels. So if that sounds good, go ahead and watch all the way through and decide if you like this. If you do, try to remember to hit thumbs up and subscribe to the channel, hit the bell so that you can be in the know, so you can continue having a pretty good idea of what you're doing and have a statistical edge when you're clicking around with your money. And returning viewers, go ahead and take a quick second, hit like, and leave me a quick comment down below, even if it's LOL, you suck, or you suck, LOL, or you suck, you actually suck, whatever you want to do. Help out the algo, and we'll be in business, so no time to waste. Let's do initiation of timification and turn off that annoying sign. And here we go. Make sure I make myself small enough. All right, so I'm going to start off with BEPRO this time. And looking at bare naked price with origin lines, the first thing I'm noticing is that so look how this line here and this line here I've highlighted white, okay, to kind of make them stand out like a sore thumb against all these other lines here that are gray. So you can see here that BEPRO on a charting perspective is only 1,200 days old. Within those 1,200 days, it spent 200 days. Okay, so like 8% of its entire life in one little run here. It spent 9% of its current life, but more like 90% of its then life within those two lines, right? So price, after going on a screamer, dropping below that, and see how it just skipped this whole channel, right? Just woo! It's filling this out before price can pump up. So if price here spent 200 days, okay, I'm not saying that it needs to put in 200 days to get there. However, the price action in terms of weakness or strength, it's just testing the bottom side. So from this structural bare naked standpoint, it looks just fine. And the interesting thing is that let's say BEPRO comes up and tests this major trend line that I have drawn here. Well, what could happen is, you know, when the market's getting hotter, maybe in mid-October, I'm not saying this is going to happen anytime super soon, but maybe within 6 weeks, if you see price come up and tag that trend line and come back and stay above this origin line, okay, so that would be meeting all-time highs, coming back down. This would be late October, but hitting about all-time highs, coming back down and resting under it. That's what you want to see. You don't want to see price fall all the way back into this channel and fill more stuff out. That could be okay, but it'd be much better if you would see it bounce on this line after. Or what could happen is it races up to this line, consolidates, and then tries higher, similar to how it did here. So price came up to that line, consolidated under it, and pushed through. So what's going to give BEPRO the push, you know, to get up here? From a non-Bitcoin perspective, obviously this all depends on Bitcoin. If Bitcoin goes down, this is going to go down, and if Bitcoin, you know, goes sideways for 6 weeks, this could easily go sideways for 6 weeks. So dependent on Bitcoin, this is what you would be looking. Let's put on some EMAs. And I'm going to take off everything but the 10 and the 200. All right. So, and I'm going to take off price. So right now you have a potential fairly bearish cross. Red going below orange. That is typically not good. However, check this out. Last time BEPRO went on a big pump, look what happened first. Had a downward, the red had a downward angle, landed softly, and did a sweep play. I need to come up with a better name. It's not a squeeze play because it's not coming from below like this would be, squeezing price above the orange, but it's like a, what should I call this? A soft landing play, right? Soft landing play. So that could be what is shaping up. And what would happen is it avoids a bearish cross, or if it just barely crosses like a fake out and undoes that cross, that typically gives it the umph to happen. So this is the 12-hour chart that 10 EMA and the 200 EMA, right? So looking at this from a different perspective, go to the daily. Something similar is happening on the daily chart, but on the 89 and the 10. So the 10 came, let me zoom in so you can see this better. So before that last pump, see that? It just soft landed without price, right? So price can come under the purple, that's fine. The red soft lands and then undoes this cross. So oftentimes if you get a bearish cross but doesn't get continuation, what happens is people who were sellers at that point, because they see this, whatever they're seeing that's indicated by the EMAs, which they might not be looking at EMAs, but it just captures it visually, whatever other sellers are seeing. But what happens here is if you don't get continuation after this bearish cross, some sellers stop being sellers and either become sideliners where selling, they're not selling, therefore sell pressure dries up, or they can instantly flip to be buyers. And that is roughly the trading psychology, mass psychology behind how this works. These soft landing plays, because there was no continuation from the bear cross, and sellers decide, hey, it's not going down, so I'm not selling anymore. Might as well buy. That's exactly what happens. So you can see this on several time frames. But right now, I mean, it honestly looks just fine. It's closing pretty strong above the daily 89 EMA, which I assume it's going to continue doing because you have this origin line, this trend line here holding it up. So I suspect you're going to get, a soft landing play. It could end up touching, go like this, start going up early October. So those are the EMAs. So really on BEPRO, staring at either the daily 89 and the 10 or the 12-hour 10 with a 200. Those would be that's what I would be eyeballing on BEPRO outside of the BTC chart, which I covered in my last video. So if you haven't seen that, I did give you a pretty big heads up on what would need to happen on the BTC pairing in order for BEPRO to really make a move up, and what that is versus Bitcoin. It needs to get above the trend line and hold it. So that soft landing play versus the US dollar, it needs to undo itself for price versus Bitcoin to get up here, close a few candles, and then really start going. And so that would be the tit for tat across these two charts that I would be looking at. So let's go to Polk. I think Polk had a pretty nice move here recently. All right, so you have a potential squeeze play going on, actually. A failed squeeze play. If you can see this right here. Bitcoin dropped, so this did it again when the squeeze play failed. So this red line supported price, and this was the major overhead obstacle EMA wise. Once this squeezed it up, people became buyers. Price went up, and then Bitcoin dropped, and it brought Polk back down. However, it's coming back for more. I mean, look at this. Let me take off price again. Hopefully, I sound better. I sound like Pinocchio in all those videos because I'm dealing with computer issues, and I just hooked up my recording software again, so I sound a little more broadcasty. But a lot of times, a retest of an EMA cross, even though this did uncross fully, but a second attempt, sometimes those are the more powerful ones. So you have a lot of you have volatility here that needs to expand, right? Because this asset has been moving sideways. I mean, pretty steadily sideways for quite some time. It's ready to expand. And so since it looks like it's 41 days, and it looks like it's choosing the upside. So this could get a pretty decent size move with that. I'm not going to give upside, profit taking targets on YouTube for this asset because that's going to be reserved for my community. But it looks like this might want to move up sooner than later with the idea that Bitcoin stays at least level and doesn't go back below, let's say, 46K or so. So if Bitcoin can stay above 46K, Polk has a pretty darn decent chance. So this is the daily chart, right? So the daily chart with the 10 EMA and the 89 EMA, pretty similar from what I was using with BEPRO. Or if you want to go to the 12-hour chart, what you're having here is another EMA play, which is a soft landing type. It looks like it's avoiding that cross. I think it's got the ump. So, just in general, without, super specific sell targets, if you are somebody who is not so new that you're not scared to sell, just know that wherever you see something, to this degree, a lot of trading with valleys, two valleys in the same spot, that's going to be some overhead resistance, but that's going to be, more than 100% move from current price to there, right? So that's 2.6 extra money if it were to go up that high. I'm not saying it's going to go up that high, but if you're not within the Patreon and Discord community, those are the things we scout, but I help give very specific levels for that. So if you want to check that out, I have links down below that don't just show you, hey, come to the community. Rather, it shows you these are examples of what you'll be getting if you join. So honestly, Polk looks like it is ready for continuation as long as Bitcoin stays over 46K. It looks pretty solid. Let me go to something like, let me put on all EMAs because I want to see. Yeah, so the cool thing about Polk is that it's under 200 days old. So from an EMA standpoint, this is the last level. So there isn't another 200 coming down here that's going to act as more resistance, right? And so once it can get above this purple line, which is the daily 89 EMA, just zoom in, look what it's doing. Look, let me take off all the other sides 10 and I did take off the 80. So right now, it didn't even wait for the 10 to squeeze it. Will it come back down and wait for the 10 to, squeeze it out? Yeah, very possibly. So the next, 2 days or 3 days could be small red candles or a mixture of green, red, and cross, and then it'll go up. So a timing on Polk, I would suspect it might wait. So let's take a look. So this cross. So it could take a week for this to start really cooking up. And again, if it were to cook up, it's going to depend on Bitcoin staying above 46.5 or so. But I'm definitely on Polkadot. I mean, honestly, the EMA to be looking at is the daily 89 and the daily 10. And when those cross is likely when you're going to start getting a continuation of this move. Right now, it went right above, closed above, coming down to recheck it. It's looking pretty good. It is possible that it doesn't wait for it, but I would suspect that it does, and that 6 days. So that's what we got for Polk. Let's go to PDEX. So you see how squeeze play happened. So the red pushed price above the purple. Price got really nice continuation out of it. So that's similar to what you might expect with Polk as well in the upcoming weeks. In the upcoming 3 weeks, that's very possible. And what kind of move did this get? 120, 2 and a quarter extra money. It's not that bad. So Polk PDEX right now, it's a much more obvious play. Without origin lines or anything like that, because it's too young of an asset. You had this trading channel, which is too aggressive. It's way too aggressive for a lower high structure. Really, I mean, over time, you need to hit a line like this, roughly at a 45-degree angle. So it is possible before. So you have that. So they have the trading channel. You fell out of it. It's too aggressive, right? You don't really want to go up at this aggression very much. It's not healthy, and it leads to bigger drops, like 50 and 70% drops. Something like even Solana, I'm really anticipating a 50% drop from its wick high down to where it settles, right? So so falling out of this, honestly, if you're a PDEX fan and you want this asset to have a next big push above this very very strong horizontal, you want it to fall out of that channel. You don't want it to go up because then it's just going to fall right back down, and then it might use it as resistance, and the whole thing might take longer. So it would be better if PDEX could put in a little time here. Honestly, maybe even come back down to the 55 because what I'm thinking here is let me show you what I'm say here. What do I do? A projection. There we go. So you want it to come in this angle, right? So now there are two ways that it could get there, right? So it could get there by going sideways for a while, which would put it when the middle of October when I think everything is about to get hot. And it would be consolidating right under a major resistance, which is massively bullish. And the longer you do that, right, the higher the likelihood of that next push is going to be. So honestly, this asset could move sideways for an entire month. And if it does, and you're a PDEX fan, you should be happy about that. Because getting over this is going to be a pretty big deal, and it just doesn't have a healthy higher low structure. This is so the angle. So let me show you what I'm talking about. So this angle right here, this line from this low to that low, it's really aggressive. It's really, really aggressive. And if it keeps doing that, bouncing on this line, for example, the correction you're going to get is bigger and deeper, and then it has to consolidate, and the whole thing to get back up is going to take. Now, if you're a profit taker and you know where to take profits, sometimes that's actually more profitable. Big range, as long as you're trading actively, that's pretty profitable. But if you simply want to see continuation in a bull market with PDEX, you would more be rooting for or looking for sideways action. And here, I mean, I would be fine with either, because if this screamed up before it hit this projection, which could be, extended farther out. So what could happen is, honestly, as your two most likelies, because it looks like it might want to break above here within the next week or so. But if it does, I would suspect it to come up. I would, possibly take a little bit of profits. I wouldn't, sell my whole bag or much more than like 10% or something, so that I would be looking for a buyback once it finally hits this projection on this angle. And then, so either way, it's going to consolidate sideways. It goes up first, it's probably going to consolidate sideways to make a more massive bounce like this. So you want to bounce at that angle as opposed to a sharp angle like this, which is almost straight up. See how the angle of that straight line is much higher than that, right? So it's kind of like a difference between that angle and that angle. This angle is not healthy. This angle is. Okay. So those are the two ways that I can see PDEX moving. So you're either going to get a pop-up, then consolidation for a while, or you're going to get consolidation for a while, then a pop-up, or you could mix it both ways. You can consolidate a little bit here, pop up a tiny bit, come back down, consolidate, hit the top of this line, and then really take off. And all that would be, around the mid-late October as well. So I can see some really healthy consolidation here going on for PDEX. I don't know if that's what my analysis last time was, because it looked like it wanted to break above this line. Is there a 200? There's not a 200. Yeah, it really looked like it wanted to go. This red line here, it looked like it was going to squeeze price up, bring it to this next level. So now that it failed, it looks like it needs to chill out a little bit. Let's take a look at the daily 21. Actually, let's see what's going on. Okay, so let's put price back on. So you can see here. Let's just do the 55. So this is the daily 55 EMA. So this is maybe what this will show you without price on what I'm talking about. Why it might need about a month of consolidation here. So watch this. So similar to my MTV video yesterday, you can see that price could not stay above this line, right? And taking price back off, what was the distance of the 55 EMA to this line that it couldn't pass? So this is kind of like its support, right? It's bouncing from here, and it can only help. So imagine you're a kid who needs to get over a fence, and you have a buddy who's holding up your foot and gives you a lift, right? So that buddy has a limit to his or her strength of how high they can push you up. Okay, so this has a limit of how high it can propel price. So if previously price wasn't propelled strongly enough by the 50 EMA when its distance was 25% away from this line, look how far away it is from the line now. It's almost double the distance. So if that same friend, maybe he ate a few cheeseburgers, and did some exercise in how many days? In 100 days, maybe he's a little stronger, right? So it's possible it doesn't have to get closer, but he probably didn't double his bench press and squat, right? So in 100 days, have you ever doubled your bench press and squat? No, you probably in 90 days. Heck no, you haven't. Or most likely, you haven't in that time frame ever. So the likelihood of PDEX breaking out above this horizontal right there. So put price back on so you can visualize this. See, it can't get above it, right? and get above and stay above, I guess, is you might need to wait, and I bet this aligns with what I'm talking about. Let me put a line here for the 55 where it was, and let's see roughly how long it would take it to get there at this slope there, but it needs to get a little higher right there, and that also puts it in roughly mid-October. It's a few days earlier than hitting this line, but that would be the earliest that I would expect it to break out from this analogy that, hey, your friend hasn't doubled his bench press and strength, so this blue line is your friend. You're trying to get over this fence right here, right? So a lot of things on PDEX are aligning for sideways consolidation. And again, if you're chest pounding PDEX, you might not want to hear that. There might be news, that could change. So they're going to release this and that at the end of the month. That is totally possible. And so I would say a more bullish case is that this whole thing was a fake out because holders of PDEX might be anticipating a big move. And so if somebody had a lot of it, they'd say, hey, I want to drive price down so I can accumulate just a little bit more, in expectations of a big move up. So it really looked like it wanted to bust above here. But it could be, I don't know if there are any whales because this isn't that big of an asset. Like there aren't people with billions of dollars in this coin, right? So the market cap, it isn't even $1 billion. So it's not like a normal whale, but somebody who might have $100,000 of this stuff. Very possible. They said, no, upcoming day, I kind of want to accumulate down here. Well, it's possible that they have created some sell pressure or without even market selling, they just have a sell wall here. And so as buyers can't chip away at that wall that person set, well, buyers get tired. And when buyers get tired, what do? They stop buying. So the buy pressure gets smaller and price settles down. So that could also be what's happening. And then once this release is done, they could potentially be removing their sell wall as they've been accumulating a little bit more down here, and then they allow price to go back up. That could be it. And if you're a person with $100,000 worth or $50,000 of a coin that has circulation of less than 20 million, these are things you can do too. I mean, you are trading, but you can also, the cool thing with small caps is you can be a market mover. I mean, for real. So that could be what's happening. And that would negate the idea that it needs to go sideways. So if that's happening, and this is more of an orchestrated thing from one person or a couple people, maybe a small group, that could negate the idea that it needs to go sideways. Because honestly, it really looked like it wanted to bust above and then consolidate. So that might be exactly what happens. And I think somebody let me know that there's a release coming out. Fairly a big piece of news. I really don't know, but that's not what the charts are telling me. But the charts are saying that it is possible. It is possible. So I guess you got 3 possibilities here, or even 4. Sideways, up, sideways, then up. All right. Sideways for a longer, then straight up. Aggressive move up, then sideways. Right. Or it could just have a couple waves of up with this upcoming news if this sell wall or if this action were orchestrated by an individual. So that's what I got for you here today. If you liked what you saw, go ahead and take a quick second, hit like if you haven't done that. And if you're new and you liked what you saw, hit subscribe and hit the bell so you can stay in the know and get a better idea of what you're doing when you're clicking around with your money. We'll see you later.